Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got another interesting topic lined up today.
That's right. We take the materials you send us, dive in, and pull out the key stuff you need to know fast.
Consider it your shortcut to getting smart on the important details.
hmm
So today we're really diving headfirst into engineering large language models. Specifically, we're looking at this really powerful technique called FewShot prompting.
Yeah, and based on some of the challenges you've mentioned, like, getting more consistent outputs from LLMs, this feels super relevant right now.
Exactly. We're going to explore how just giving these models a small number of well-chosen examples can make a huge difference.
A really huge difference in how they understand what you're asking for in your, engineering work.
We'll be looking at how examples can boost accuracy, that's a big one,
Definitely.
and how they give you more control over the output structure, which, for technical tasks, is often critical.
Absolutely essential sometimes.
Mhm.
And also how they help the model generalize, handle things it hasn't seen before.
We'll also dig into some practical engineering stuff, like token usage trade-offs,
That's important.
strategies for actually formatting those examples effectively, and, when one example is enough versus needing a few.
Right. One shot versus few shot.
So the goal here is that by the end, you'll walk away with some solid, practical insights for using few-shot prompting in your own technical projects.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's get started. Maybe we should first just quickly define prompt engineering itself. What is that?
Sure. So basically, a prompt is just the input you give an LLM, usually text.
Right.
And the model uses that input to figure out what kind of output to generate.
Okay, simple enough. You give it instructions, it gives you something back. But the engineering part sounds, well, more involved.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone can write a prompt, right? But prompt engineering is the skill, the process of crafting prompts that reliably get you the results you actually want.
So it's about optimizing.
Exactly. Optimizing things like the length of the prompt, the style you use, how you actually structure the information you put in there.
And why is that structure so important?
Well, you have to remember how these models fundamentally work. They're predicting the next word or token based on everything they've seen before their training data and your prompt.
Okay, like sophisticated pattern matchers. Tokens are like words or parts of words.
Pretty much, yeah. And more words or longer examples mean more tokens. So prompt engineering is all about setting up your prompt to guide that prediction process.
Guiding it towards the right sequence of tokens for your specific task.
Precisely. You're giving it strong clues, really targeted clues, to get the output you need for your engineering application.
Got it. Fine-tuning the instructions. Okay, now let's talk about these examples. You mentioned going beyond zero shot. What's zero shot?
Zero shot is the simplest way. You just describe the task, no examples given.
Like write Python code for factorial. Full stop.
Exactly that. The model just uses its general knowledge. And, sometimes that's fine for simple stuff.
But often not enough for complex engineering tasks.
Often, yeah. If you need a specific format or specific error handling or a certain style, just describing it might not cut it. The model needs more direction.
That makes sense. So that's where examples come in. One shot.
One shot is providing just a single example, input, and the corresponding output you want.
Just one. Does that really help much for, say, a complex data transformation?
It can, surprisingly. Even one good example can clarify the format, the style, maybe the logic you're after.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, for more complex stuff, or when you need really tight control over the output structure or need it to handle various inputs,
Yeah.
that's where FewShot comes in.
FewShot. Providing multiple examples. How many are we typically talking, like, for engineering use cases?
Usually it's a small number,
Yeah.
maybe 3, 4, 5 examples, something like that.
Okay.
It depends a bit on how complex the task is and also on the model's input limits, the token limits we mentioned.
So these examples are like mini training data right inside the prompt.
That's a great way to put it. It's in-context learning. You show it several input-output pairs.
And it learns the pattern from those few examples.
Right. It gets reference points to work from, making it much more specific than zero shot.
Okay, let's break down the benefits for engineers then. How do these few examples actually improve things like accuracy, structure, and this idea of generalization?
Right. So for accuracy, the examples show the kind of answer you want, the level of detail.
Mhm.
The model sees your new input, compares it to the patterns in the examples, and generates something much more relevant and, well, accurate for your specific need.
Instead of just guessing based on a general instruction.
Exactly. And then structure, you mentioned how critical that is for technical tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. If
Yeah.
you need JSON output for an API, it has to be valid JSON.
Precisely. And FewShot is brilliant for this. You show examples with the exact format, like specific JSON keys and values, nested structures, whatever you need.
Ah, okay. Like maybe parsing a pizza order into JSON.
Perfect example. You could show it a few natural language orders, like large pepperoni, half mushrooms, and then the corresponding JSON.
Showing the structure, like size,
Yeah.
large, type, pepperoni, and maybe nested ingredients.
Exactly. Maybe even showing how to handle that half and half request within the JSON structure. The examples teach the format directly.
That's incredibly powerful for automation. It learns how to present the data, not just what data,
And then there's generalization, getting it to handle new stuff robustly.
which is key if you want a reliable engineering tool.
Right. If you give it diverse, high-quality examples, including some edge cases, maybe unusual inputs or formats.
Edge cases, like maybe a malformed log entry or an order with weird toppings.
Yeah, exactly. Things that aren't the standard perfect input. By showing it how to handle those in the examples, you help it learn to cope better with the messy reality of real-world data.
So you're essentially pre-teaching it resilience for unexpected input.
That's the idea. The more representative your examples, the better it generalizes to new inputs it encounters in your actual engineering work.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense. But you mentioned practicalities, engineering considerations. What do we need to watch out for?
Yeah, the big one is prompt length. Adding examples makes your input prompt longer.
Right. More text, more examples.
It means more tokens.
Ah, the token limits again.
Exactly. Most LLMs have a maximum input token limit. Your examples, plus your actual query, can easily push up against that limit or even exceed it.
So there's a trade-off. More examples give better guidance, but might mean you can't ask as complex a question or process as much initial data.
Precisely that. You have to manage token usage carefully. It becomes part of the system design.
Okay.
And related to that, remember, you can usually control the maximum tokens in the model's output too. That's another setting to consider.
Good point. So token efficiency is key. Now, assuming we decide FewShot is the way to go for our task, how do we craft good examples? What makes an effective FewShot prompt?
Quality is everything here. Your examples absolutely need to be relevant to the task.
Obvious but important.
Yeah. And diverse. Cover the kinds of variations you expect to see. And they have to be, well, correct and clearly written.
Meticulously written, you mean? Like no typos or small errors?
Definitely. Even tiny mistakes in an example can seriously confuse the model. It might learn the wrong pattern or just produce garbage.
So careful example creation and maybe even testing the examples themselves.
Absolutely crucial. And like we said about generalization, if you need robustness, actively include those edge cases in your examples. Show the desired behavior for tricky situations.
Makes sense. What about specific tasks? Say like classifying things, maybe classifying server log messages into error, warning, info.
Yeah, good question. For classification, a best practice is to mix up the examples from different classes in your prompt.
So don't put all the error examples together, then all the warning ones.
Right. Avoid that. Mix them up. Otherwise, the model might just learn that, say, the third example is always warning, without actually understanding why. It learns position, not features.
Subtle but important. Prevents overfitting to the order.
Exactly. You want to learning the characteristics of each class. And as a rough starting point for testing classification with FewShot, maybe aim for around 6 good examples initially.
6, okay. That's a helpful rule of thumb. So we've talked a lot about FewShot. When would we stick with just one example, one shot, or even 0 shot for engineering tasks?
It really depends. Task complexity is a big factor. Super simple, clear task. 0 shot might be fine.
Right.
A bit more complex, but you have one perfect example that captures exactly what you need. 1 shot could be more efficient, fewer tokens.
Finding the simplest effective method.
Yeah. Also, what examples do you actually have? If you only have 1 or 2 really strong ones, 1 shot might be better than padding with weaker FewShot examples.
Quality over quantity sometimes.
Definitely. And the model itself matters. Some LLMs are better learners from fewer examples than others.
And back to tokens, if your input data for the actual task is already very long, you might only have space for 1 example, or even none.
Exactly right. So, yeah, the general guideline for FewShot in engineering is maybe 3 to 5 examples for complex tasks,
Right.
but always be ready to adjust based on your specific problem, the model, and those token limits.
Sounds like it requires some experimentation then, finding that sweet spot.
Definitely involves testing and tuning.
Okay, one more thing. Can we combine FewShot with other techniques? Make it even more powerful for our engineering workflows.
Oh, absolutely. FewShot is a great foundation. You can definitely layer other techniques on top, like uh, chain of thought prompting.
Chain of thought sounds useful for complex reasoning, like debugging.
Exactly. With chain of thought, your examples don't just show the input, like an error message, and the final output, the fix.
They show the steps in between.
Precisely. You include the step-by-step reasoning, how you get from the error to the fix.
Wow, okay. So you're literally showing the model how to think through the engineering problem step by step.
Yes. And even just one detailed chain of thought example alongside a new similar problem can teach the model to adopt that structured thinking process. It really helps with more complex analysis or diagnostics.
That's really cool. So the few shot examples aren't just about the final format, but potentially the whole logical journey. That seems incredibly useful for tricky engineering tasks.
It really can be.
Yeah.
It's about using examples strategically on multiple levels to guide the model towards the precise, accurate, and well-reasoned outputs you need for engineering.
Well, this has been incredibly illuminating. It really highlights how just a few smart examples can dramatically change the game when working with LLMs for technical stuff.
It's true. Thinking carefully about those examples lets you boost accuracy, get that structured output you need for integration,
Hmm.
and make the model handle a wider range of real-world engineering data more reliably. It all comes down to those strategic examples.
And remembering those engineering constraints, like token limits, and the absolute need for high-quality, relevant, diverse, correctly formatted examples.
Exactly. Don't skimp on crafting those examples. Test them. Include edge cases if robustness matters. Mix up classes for classification.
So for everyone listening who's building tools with LLMs, really think about where few-shot prompting could fit in. Where could a few good examples help you get more consistent, structured, or robust results?
Yeah, and maybe think specifically, what's one nagging inconsistency or bottleneck you face right now with an LLM in your engineering work? Could crafting just 3 to 5 targeted examples help smooth that out?
That's a great question to ponder. Well, thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Really appreciate you tuning in to explore few-shot prompting.
Absolutely. And if you found this useful for your engineering work, definitely subscribe to the deep dive. We'll be exploring more prompt engineering techniques and other technical topics to help you out.
Until next time, keep experimenting and keep building.